All right, welcome back for the episode of Carnivore Trades. Today is Wednesday, February 22nd, 2022. If you're not done so already, please give the video a thumbs up, like, comment, subscribe to the channel. Come find me on carnivoretrades.com for swing trading alerts and analysis. Anyways, let's get into the markets here today. So a couple of things to go over. First of all, we do have NVIDIA earnings after the bell. Markets have just closed. So I will keep you posted there if I see anything with that report. Outside of that, spiders here just fractionally lower here. The Q's actually managed to scratch out a gain in the last really 10 minutes of the day. We were down pretty much the majority of the day. We did kind of float higher ahead of the FOMC, or not the FOMC, but the Fed minutes. And you can see we kind of just floated back down. Not a very heavy volume day until obviously post FOMC, where we had some volume come in. But it felt kind of like an OPEX day almost. I mean, there was a lot of whipsaw here. We had that kind of initial reaction, and we did trade lower, and then we got a little bit of a bid off the lows. Bottom line is we're coming into some technical levels, and nothing's really changed all that much from yesterday. We did obviously test the 50 MA. I said we probably would test that today. The fact that we gapped up gave me a little bit of a bear bias going into today. Usually after a good sell-off, bulls don't want to see a gap up. You want to see a gap down. The best bull case probably would have been a gap down and then a flush to the 50 MA and then a green close. That's what you want. You want that gap down to buy the dip. But we gapped up and then we kind of rallied in the first half hour. That was kind of a sell signal. I did play this to the downside this morning if you have a few day trades here. But either way, markets ended, fractionally lower, basically flat. And really right now, all eyes are on NVIDIA and the SMH here. This continues to be a little bit on the weaker side, but we'll get into that in just a second because I don't want to get sidetracked. The big area here that we're going to look at, though, is I'm just going to pull up the SPX to get rid of these lines. But basically, so you can see we're into this trend line now. And we now have finally actually kissed the 50 moving average there on the daily. So that has at least been touched here. We did touch it on the futures yesterday, or basically yesterday, and we kind of pierced it on the futures today a little bit. Spiders, okay, I mean, like that's like, a pinpoint right there. So we technically didn't get it, but we kissed it there on the spiders. But basically that's where we are. And again, you do have, this upsloping trend line there coinciding with that. So that is a pretty good area here for a bounce. We talked about that yesterday. And again, you are into that 50-week moving average. And I would think that they would at least try to defend this green bar low at least once. If we close below this green bar low by the end of the week, that's a failed pattern. We do have a failed pattern here on the daily as well, so just be aware of that. So here's kind of the cross current, is that you have, and I'm just going to get rid of the lines here. But the cross current is you have this trend line here, and obviously the 50 MA, but you have a failed pattern. And usually when you get a failed pattern, the next support level can give out pretty quickly. So that is something that we got to be careful for. But another thing you have is obviously the trend line there, but we also have that inverse head and shoulders on the weekly. And let me try and draw that in if I can get my tool. There we go. And we're basically back testing that line right now. If we close below that, it's likely going to coincide with a close below this green bar low and that 50 MA. If that fails, this rally is over with. If they save it, we could still have another push up here. I wouldn't rule that out. At this point, it's not looking that great, though. We only have 2 days left. And, granted, we're not that far away. I mean, it's only, $1.50 on the spiders. So they can save it here. But, the bulls, you want to see it really, I mean, the best setup today would have been a gap down, like I said, and then a dip buy with a green close and a tail candle. We obviously haven't seen that, and yesterday we pretty much went no bid. It was very, very one-sided. So again, bulls have their work cut out for them. Bears are still in control here. Yes, we did concede, the last 10 minutes. I mean, there's a little bit of a pop there into the close, but nothing crazy. So those are really the levels here. So if we get a bounce, bulls really need to, I would say you got to reclaim that 20 moving average. And again, obviously the weekly level there on the weekly time frame here, but that's going to be kind of really what would open the door for possibly a move to gap fill. If these levels break, though, we're going lower. It's pretty much that simple. And the first real major level is right around 385, 386. I mean, the 390 area has been a pivot point for quite a while. You might get a speed bump there, but I think the better level is right around 385, 386. Also, again, if you were to get a failed pattern, usually, like I was just saying, the first level, that one gets blown through pretty quickly. And if we had a weekly failure of this green bar, I would think we probably can get through that pretty fast. So that's what I'm looking at right now. Again, it's pretty cut and dry here. Technically, you are into this area. We should get a bounce. If we start to go sideways, that's telling you it wants to go lower. So we'll be on guard for that. But again, really just kind of a choppy day here. Another point for the bulls right now is this Tesla. Just Tesla continues to be strong, up 1.77% in a down tape. Why does that matter? Well, Tesla's a good gauge of risk on. And that fact that it's holding up, it still has a green bar here, and you're inside of that. So you do have an inside bar there. It never quite got to that 225 area. I think a lot of people wanted to short it there. In fact, I know a lot of people wanted to short it there. I saw that chart all over Twitter. For the last couple of weeks, I was going to short it there myself. But we never quite got there. So a lot of the time when you get that level that is, it's very obvious. Sometimes you won't get there. So, or maybe you'll have to consolidate before you can get through it. But again, could this get up through there? It's certainly possible, but the spiders are certainly not behaving that way. Maybe this is just a laggard bear at this point. So just be aware of that. But Tesla's holding up. Also, Bitcoin. Usually we cover Bitcoin at the end, but we'll do it first today because I want to talk about... There we go. So Bitcoin here. Again, still struggling with that 25,000 handle. And we did have a nice sell-off today, down 2.5. Ether down 2.5 as well. But again, not terribly broken here. Like, you're still well inside of this bar. You're inside of this green bar. So the pattern here is still bullish. It's still a bullish structure. If you take this out, then it gets weaker, especially the 20-move average. It gets weaker. You'll probably go down and test 22.5. If that happens, it's obviously going to be a big point for the bears. But for right now, those two things, just the fact that Bitcoin and Tesla are holding up, is probably the two really biggest things that the bulls hang their hats on right now, outside of those trend lines there that we talked about on the daily. But and by the way, speaking of trend lines, take a look at the hourly here. So this hourly bull flag that was previously, and I've got my after hours line set up here, so that's why it looks all choppy. But you can see where we went to today, right into that, and we got a pretty strong rejection off of it. So SPY bulls are a little weak, and they, you really need to get that bounce here. If you get a dead cat bounce and go sideways, that's definitely going to favor the bears. You let that 20 moving average kind of slope down and act as fuel for a push lower here. You consolidate above the 50, above the 200. It's telling you it wants to go lower. And again, that weekly level there, 428 on the SPY, and on the SPX it is 40-20 spot 44. So those are levels we're watching there. Again, we'll see what we do tomorrow. I don't see anything coming out of NVIDIA right now. I believe they're a little bit of a late reporter, but we'll see if we can get there by the end of the video. We'll take a look. Anyways, let's get over to the Qs. So again, Qs managing to scratch out just a shy gain there. Again, Tesla probably helping out a lot with that. Amazon was also up fractionally as well. Decent little gain there, 1.28%. Nothing crazy. Not a great looking chart though on Amazon. Same thing with Google. Google very weak. I think this wants to get down to 87, right on that gap fill, 87, 88. But nonetheless, QQQ able to scratch out a gain. Again, we lost this bullish structure yesterday. Still the same thing here with the spiders though. We're looking at that weekly green bar that has not been, broken yet. We are back below that 50-week moving average though, so that is something to keep an eye on here. But again, the analysis really is just the same here for the Qs at this point. Really, I'm going off that spiders trend line. Russell 2000, this was also on the, believe it or not, on the stronger side, actually never made a lower low intraday. Same thing with the Qs, and then again, that's another kind of win there for the bulls here in the near term. So Russell 2000 hanging in there okay. It's holding that green bar for right now. Let's see, 187.38. Looks like we closed 5 pennies above that yesterday. So talk about saving it. Literally 5 pennies there on the IWM. If that gets closed below, that's a failed breakout. And you're probably going down to, you got the 50 MA there, but the next big level is at 180. So Russell 2000 got to hang on there as it's really on by the skin of its teeth. Dow, I don't think we talked about this yesterday, but pretty nice trend line break. So we were following that kind of wedge pattern here. We got rid of it. It just wasn't really, it was too sloppy there at the top side. Pretty nice breakdown here. Again, could it put in a higher low? It's possible, but again, talk about by the skin of your teeth. 329.35 is the low from this green bar. 329.45 was today's low. So you got 10 cents there to put in a higher low. But again, Dow really leading to the downside right now. So anyways, let's get over here. So let's talk about the semis. Let's look at NVIDIA again really quick. Yeah, it doesn't look like anything's going on. Getting a little bit of a bid here, but that doesn't look like earnings. So I'll try and check this in a minute. Let's look at the SMH. Again, more follow through from yesterday. So again, we broke that green bar. That's a failed inside bar on the daily time frame. The weekly, again, still a little bit lower, but that's the level we're watching here. It should get defended on the first try. But again, it's very tough here. We're in a tricky situation. And obviously NVIDIA can, completely throw a wild card here. It looks like it's bidding up a little bit. Let's see. Yeah, so it's getting a bid here. So it looks like something is out here. For NVIDIA, we're at the 209 handle. Nothing major yet. I do want to talk about Intel, though. This got destroyed again today. Intel just barely holding onto this pivot. And you got a weekly bear base there on Intel. It might need to do a little bit more consolidation here, but that is not a pattern of strength. Monthly inside bar, that is weak. So Intel under a lot of pressure here. I think the semis are a short coming up shortly. I would love for a bounce in NVIDIA just to get an opportunity in this. But either way, semis, again, another down day. And again, down 49 basis points versus the Qs were actually green. So semis are now leading to the downside here. So just be aware of that. IGV was higher today. So that actually scratched out again, up 1.02%. Palo Alto had a nice day here, up 12%. They reported earnings yesterday. We talked about that. It went up here and filled this gap here, and it's actually a pretty good dip buy. There was some distribution in the morning, and then it kind of rallied back up. So Palo Alto actually holding up okay. There's lots of bags up here, though, so I don't think it gets much through this here. Maybe you could pierce it, but there's a lot of bags in this area. So Palo Alto, I think, is about done on the charts right now. But IGV, again, holding up for now. Again, we did lose that green bar yesterday, but again, here's the weekly green bar from January 31st. Which is going to be the big level here. You're basically hovering right on that 50 moving average right now. All right, over to the transports. DJT, this was weak all day long, down 63 basis points. We closed below this green bar yesterday. Not a good sign. It's holding the 14.5 area. That was an area of support, so maybe it can get a bid here, but I don't like what it did yesterday. I would have liked to have seen this hold yesterday if I was a bull here. Could it still go down to the 50 MA? Yeah, it can. And still get a bid there. And again, you do have the green bar low all the way down at 14.1. So, it's not technically broken yet, but this looks like a lot of distribution here. And you're below the FOMC pump, well below it. So transport's in some trouble here, and that was weak all day long. Anyways, over to home builders XHB. That was fractionally higher here, up 63 basis points. This is not a good pattern here. Again, you wanted a gap down and then a bit up, not an inside day. Not a good look for XHB. Same thing with ITB. If these things go sideways, they're telling us they're setting up a bear base here. VNQ losing the 50-day moving average here, down almost 1%. Again, that should have a little bit of support there at the 20-week moving average, but this is not a strong chart. You guys know I've been on that one for a while here. And by the way, you could even make a case that you've got, I can draw it in. So there's a trend line there, and that coincides with the spider's trend line. But weekly, we zoom out, that's just a big bear base there. So again, not in love with real estate. You guys know that. This has been a laggard for quite a while here, and I expect that to continue. Anyways, over to fins here. So XLF. Actually, we forgot interest rates. Before I forget interest rates here. So ZT, 2-year got smoked pretty hard on the Fed minutes. You can see that we sold off pretty sharply. We are off the lows a little bit here, so we'll not make too much out of it, but this looks like it wants to go to double bottom. There, maybe you can get a bid here, but rates are not looking good right now. Or I should say rates are looking good, but bonds are not. A lot of volume there on ZB today. We'll see if they can defend that pivot finally. We had a pretty ugly candle yesterday. We had a tail that failed yesterday. We had a tail Friday. It failed yesterday. Let's see if they can defend it here. But even with the volume, this is not like, it's not like we had an engulfing reversal or anything. So 30-year under pressure here. HYG, we had a bear break yesterday. We went back up to the trend line. It backed off. So we just back tested that trend line, and doesn't mean it can't get back above it, but this is starting to look soft here. JNK, same thing. Not a good chart here. LQD, again, looks a little bit more like TLT. But again, bonds not showing really any relative strength here. And again, that's what we've been saying here for quite a while. And the jaws are starting to snap shut specifically for the Qs. Anyways, okay, over to fins. XLF holding the 50 moving average. Beautiful rising wedge break. It's probably going to get a bounce here, but I think this puts in more of a bear pattern / DCB dead cat bounce. That's a shortable setup there. By the way, I am short XLF via SKF, just so you guys know. Full disclosure, but I don't like the bounce there. Again, could it rally up a little bit? It's certainly possible. Maybe it could even back test this trend line, but it's ultimately a bounce for selling, if you ask me. XBD here back in channel, so nice dump on XBD. We talked about the 20 moving average yesterday. That got broken today. Again, this is still holding up well, but I love those rising wedges when they get that fake bull break. I love those types of patterns here. As you can see, we fell right back into that channel. You'll have some support around 488, 490, which is not far from where we are. And then you got to go down really kind of to that 50 MA, 475 kind of area there. And then, of course, that upsloping trend line there, that former wedge area. All right, over to crude energy. So crude getting hit here. This is actually getting hit a little bit in the after hours, too. Yeah, nice dump there for crude. It's funny, Putin's talking of World War III and energy just not really doing anything really. Some of you guys talk about this head and shoulders. I'm not in love with it because I like head and shoulders to be at the highs, so it's a reversal pattern more so than a continuation. Either way, you do have a bear base here, as I've been saying for quite a while. Could it be ready to roll over? It's possible. Where does it want to go? 60. That's for sure. I know everybody's going to want to buy the 200 moving average. I would not do that. If we had hit the 200 moving average back here off of this, I would have been all over it, but we've done too much consolidating, too much basing in front of it. So $60 is a good area. Could even get down to 50 on overshoot, so don't rule that out. But crude definitely rolling over there. As soon as we lost that green bar, that little inside bar, it started to roll over time. So again, another failed pattern there. For crude futures, XLE, hanging on by a thread. So it hit that 200 moving average. It's getting a bid. It's holding this red bar low for now, so it hasn't broken down. So we'll watch that by the end of the week. If it loses that, it's into correction mode, and you're probably going down to this lower trend line. Not in a straight line, won't go right away, but that's a pretty good inside bar pattern there for XLE. XOP, same thing. So that is below. It's not below this low yet, but it's below this red bar low. If that breaks, you're probably going to that 100 MA there. Maybe even a little bit lower. Earlier I was looking for 120 earlier this, or say late last year. We didn't quite get there. Maybe even 115. But again, we'll see what it looks like when it gets there. But again, energy under pressure. OIH, fall from grace. Again, this is why I would have liked it to hit this is why I kept saying 250, 250, 250 for a long time. I would have liked it a lot better if it hit that, and then I would have said, okay, this can go up. If this loses, again, if we can't recover, we got to go all the way back up to 308 here by the end of the week. Otherwise, that's a failed weekly inside bar. We're probably going to get down to 275, 280 pretty fast. So again, nothing's changed there for the OIH, but a nice little, bottom fell out of it today with volume. So could get a bounce at the 100 MA, but if it's a dead cat bounce, and again, sideways action, it probably wants to go lower. All right, over to Natty. Everybody wants to know about Natty. Natty having probably its best day in a long time. Even though it was only up 4%, it's not so much the 4%, it's the price action. This was an absolute monster rally and V-shaped rally. Again, you're seeing it here. We're getting close to that contract rollover. That is Friday. The contracts are now all into contango, pretty much all the way out to January 24. Suppliers are coming offline. I think you're seeing buyers step in, but again, we're still seeing some liquidations here. So again, into the COMEX close. Big surprise. Again, into the COMEX close. Somebody might still be stuck here. I don't know if it could be NATO. It might even be China that wants to take delivery cheap. I mean, these are all theories here. I can't, I can only give you theories. But this type of price action is highly unusual, to say the least, without a bounce. But this may be a low here. We talked about this curling down and then pushing back up. That is certainly in play here. There's also a cycle in play. I showed that to members earlier. So we'll see if that can give it a bid here. But Natty definitely having its best price action, even though it came off the highs before the comics goes, definitely the best price action really since like December. So we'll see if that can push through here. Big level you want to see it clear is 230. If you can get above that on a close, then you're up to probably 262. Above this pivot here, 265. That's where it gets cleared, if you ask me. But for right now, interesting price action. We'll see what it does. And again, Putin talking up World War III, China talking up World War III, and energy just doesn't care. So maybe that's just telling us that this is all just BS. Anyways, over to the dollar index, continuing to push higher here, up 37 basis points. I love what I'm seeing here from the DXY. Again, we're nicely in the money on our long dollar position right now. Looking for, probably 105 here in the near term. That's going to be that red bar opening price there. Might have to do some more backing and filling, but it got a nice bid here today. So DXY holding up. Yeah, nothing really too new to add to it. Should get up to 106 before any sort of major pullback. Gold, on the other hand, again, into a decent level. This had a chance to bounce, and it's kind of still, it's still looking on the weaker side. That's why I said I like it a little bit lower here. This is more of just a bounce level. But again, you're still holding that green bar. So it's still in play. It can still get a bid here. Again, what did I say? 1875. You got the 50 MA. The longer this takes to bid, though, the less likely it's going to happen. I mean, this should have, if it was going to bounce, you'd probably want it to, you wanted it to get going now, and it hasn't really done that. So you're not seeing dip buyers step in. If this goes sideways, it's probably going to go down to 1800, 1795 pretty quickly. But we'll give it a little bit of time here. Again, like I said, the dollar, this might be a little bit of a stall area here at 105. So maybe gold can catch a lift off of that, but it's not showing, really a ton of move here. And then GDX here lost that tail candle. So, again, there's better levels lower here. I probably wants to go back at this point and test 26 at the very least, based on the fact that it hasn't been able to get a bid off that 200, 100 necktie. You're below the 20-week moving average now as well. So GDX a little bit weaker here. It is telling that it couldn't get a bid off that area. Silver here, again, 100 MA rejection, so it doesn't look like we're going to get up to 2250. Again, this looks like it might want to go sideways as well. There's better levels to buy this lower, which I will be in myself. Platinum, on the other hand, up 20 basis points, although it came off the highs. Again, you stalled out right there at that red bar high. That was at 964. We got to 963, spot 9. Could this get up to 975? It definitely can, especially since it's showing relative strength to the other metals. Good volume yesterday too, and you're reclaiming that 200 moving average. So there's a chance here, especially if the dollar pulls in, this can get up to that area. Second target would be 1,000. Again, this is not the final low for platinum. It's just these are just short-term levels. But yeah, platinum still holding up better than the rest of the pack. Copper didn't quite get to 425. I don't know if it wants to get there. It is a little soft. You do have kind of a 4-hour head and shoulder there. I don't know if that's going to trigger. But again, I think it's about done if it does get to that level here. So I'm not in love with copper at the moment. But yeah, it's holding up okay. All right. We already talked about Bitcoin here. Let's get back to NVIDIA. Wow, right back to 208. Is this going to be a nothing burger? I don't even know if their earnings are out yet. I think they're a bit of a late reporter. Let me check the wire here. See if I can get anything. It doesn't look like their earnings are out right now. Yeah, I don't think so. We did get LCID though. And they're puking completely. Wonder if that's going to bring down Tesla here. So LCID, that's down like 10% there. Tesla, yeah, it's basically flat. They're hanging in there. All right. Well, anyways, kind of a bummer here that NVIDIA is not going to cooperate. They'll probably release this right after I get done doing this video. But either way, this is make or break for the semis right now. If NVIDIA gaps down tomorrow and it holds the lows, it's likely the SMA just going to have a failed pattern on the weekly. If it holds up, then again, we'll watch that going into the weekend. And again, same thing with the spiders here. Trend lines we're watching here are this big one and if we go back to the naked chart, we're watching that inverse trend line and the 50, which basically just call it the 50-week moving average, basically. Anyways, guys, gonna wrap it up here. You guys take care. Come find me on carnivoretrades.com. Talk to you all tomorrow.